This is Priest Nob. Shalom Israel. This is Priest Officer 500 Kanaka. And the ISBK is inviting all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians to the Lord's 57th annual Passover in Houston, Texas on April 4th. Pay your $200 Passover fee and come and kick it with us. The Passover is a high holy day given to us by the Most High to keep in all our generations. You can read more about the origins of the Passover in the book of Exodus. If you want to read more about these high holy days given to us by the Most High, read the book of Leviticus, chapter 23. It's going to give you all of the high holy days that the Lord ordained for us to keep in all of our generations, not the holidays that our oppressor makes us keep. Shalom.
He parted the Red Sea, and an entire nation of Israel walked out of the slavery
The ISUPK presents the Lord's 57th annual Passover, April 4th, 2026 in Houston, Texas. You do not want to miss this one, Israel. Shalom.
Yeah. Cold shit. I ain't come with goons, but I'm well connected. Walk in the room and pop, 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 like you got rejected. Let me see if you qualify or not. Spinning up in a tinted truck, riding around your block. Busy man. I get a word, he ain't this shit from top to bottom like a motherfucking ceiling fan. Hopping out the rental van, on my way to LAX. Brothers out in Cali and they killers out of every set. But I ain't crippin' on no blood. One West, all my niggas got it out the mud. Put your face on a t-shirt, memory of niggas acting tough on them songs, that's the drugs. I don't need no cases, all my pistols clean. So now I weigh my options. Used to use the triple beam. Used to get the wop, mix it with the nicotine. Now I travel state to state and put on for my team.
The fuck wrong with them? Ain't on my level, I should let my dog get them. I see niggas and they feelings, I don't feel them. Kick the Glock in with me, it was like a ball with me. At the end, I gotta stay patient. They hate me, Lord, I gotta stay dangerous. You one of them? Yeah. What's the problem? I'm one West, go to war with everybody. Cut the grass for the snake, fuck the gospel. Front line with them soldiers, that's my posture. Gun drawn, trying to curse an imposter. Shit get out the pocket, go to war with everybody, yeah. Shit that hate, make it to the featherweight. Niggas claim they hard, but they sweeter than a dedication. Hold on, think it's time to introduce. I'm a man and a beast and a step and a root. Hold on, and a G and a soldier and a mover. Hold on, and a killer and a prophet and a shooter, nigga. Try to stay humble, my shit crazy. Cold leader, need the blue stripes, no brick baby. Can't be serious, you a funny boy, young fly. Look wrong, must be a dummy, I ain't gunshot. Fuck that little bitch, she a hook. Nigga swear he the goat, bring him to the bush, The fuck wrong with him? Ain't on my level, I should let my dog get him. Niggas in they feelings, I don't feel them. Kid the Glocky with me, it was like a ball with him. Be at the end, gotta stay patient. They hate me, Lord, I gotta stay patient. You one of them? Yeah. What's the problem? I'm one West, go to war with everybody.
I'm from Philly, it get hot, you catch a cold case. I'm one West, these brothers trying to set my soul straight. They done turned me to a prophet from a demon, and I'm locked in this shit and I ain't leaving. Never ski mask transform to war mode like I'm Voltron. Stamp on my head and my chest from the most high. Put something tight around your neck like a bow tie. Got my niggas waiting charged up like they phone died.
Red letter, drip clean, it looks so fly. Claim he riding, that's why I left his ass rolls out. He gon' die. Skyscraper to a nosedive, 9mm plus P, fuck a 4-5. The fuck wrong with him? Ain't on my level, I should let my dog get him. I see niggas and they feelings, I don't feel them. Kick the Glocky with me, it was like a ball with me. Be at the end, I gotta stay patient. They hate me, Lord, I gotta stay dangerous. You one of them? Yeah. What's the problem? I'm one West, go to war with everybody.
There's power in the word no. At University of Phoenix, there's no application fee, entrance exam, or
They said free the Palestinians, then celebrate the death of Native Indians. How these other races gon' take us serious? They don't. It's silly thinking you can fight oppression with a vote. I'm so woke, I got sleep deprivation. Belly of the beast giving birth to a nation. You know how I feel to have culture and they take it. It'll never be peace. Tell them free the reservation. Till it's backwards. They don't know that they exist no more. Ever try reaching out for help and you just get ignored? Pick up vices like drugs, your child fill a void. They get a youth life sentence for a killing. He was just a boy. Niggas poor, what we living for? Life a gamble, it's like 10 to 4. Police hands around your neck, they just hit record. We in war, man, this ain't the norm. But you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know. Mama on the stage crying. She just lost her only son to gang violence. Pops level 4 yard talking through the fence. Have you ever tried to hug your loved ones through a fence? Have you ever been hated just because your skin? Have you ever worked all week and couldn't pay your rent? Life a trip, I'm trying to catch my balance. Every step feel like I'm walking backwards. Credit card, but God check the balance. I come from where it's rough, that's why my heart callous. They want you to fall weak, that's a war tactic. Look how we live, what's scary than that? What you know about crossing the Darien Gap? Risk your life to live in hell or bury your kids. Either way we gotta suffer and they just get rich. Life a bitch, why I waste time telling you that? Cause if you ain't a nigga like me, you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know how I feel to be black. Yeah, you don't know.
All right, Shalom, Israel. We are the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge. We've been established and teaching the truth since 1969 under Commanding General Yohana. If it's not of the ISUPK, it is not of the Lord. You are not in the truth. This is the Monday night history class of Martin Luther King's Extreme Nightmare, which he called it was a dream, but if you're in the truth, it is a nightmare. One that no one talks about, one that no one really brings the truth out about, one that people overlooks because of pretty words, like how pastors have. That's what he is, and that's what he got. All right, so, and today's because I've been bringing out some videos of some articles about what led to Martin Luther King and how he became who he was, his motivation, and the about to be soon to be released seals come next year. So that'll answer the class for y'all. Of course, I have some scriptures I'm going to bring out, and we're going to go from there. But as I begin, I would like to say, just to talk about how it is that why was Martin Luther King's civil rights movement or stuff of nature, why was it so prevalent? And like, what was the need for it? Or why was it that Black people, what system were they in that made them want to try to band together to get rid of such said system, or what was impeding the progress of blacks in Black people in Black America? It's a lot. Well, we're going to go into one to understand about what they was going through. We got to go into the Jim Crow laws. So we're going to read a few of those Jim Crow laws to show what our people was dealing with and how we can and how they started to get back from that. So let me share my screen. So like, hopefully I can see that. Let me make it larger. Okay. So like, let me zoom in real quick. Bear with me one moment. So like, let me look, make sure it looks pretty decent. I think I make it a little larger. All right, it says Jim Crow law in the United States history and any laws that enforce racial segregation in the South between the end of Reconstruction of 1877 and the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement in the 1950s. So there you go. We have it right now. It's racial segregation. So I want to talk about that real quick, briefly. There was no need to make races or people separate. You want to know why? Because people naturally do it. Just think about when you was in school. You saw all the Asian kids sit with the Asians, all the Africans sit with Africans, the whites sit with whites, blacks sit with blacks, and of course different tribes. Of course, you got Hispanics sit with Hispanics. People tend to flock towards what their own kinsmen, what they look like. So there was no need to have racial segregation. Now, but that's what they feel was necessary. I'm gonna keep going on. It says Jim Crow was the name of a minstrel routine. Actually, Jim Crow, performed in the beginning of 1828 by the author Thomas Dormoff. I ain't saying his damn nickname, and by many imitators. All right, so it was a performance art, like blackface. That's how it started. So name of minstrel routine, Jim Crow. All right. Then it says the term came to be a derogatory epithet for African Americans and the designation for their segregated life. It says from the late 1870s, Southern states legislatures no longer controlled by so-called carpetbaggers and freedmen passed laws requiring the separation of whites from persons of color in public transportations and schools. It says generally back in that time, anyone suspected of black ancestry in any degree was for that purpose of a person of color. The pre-Civil War distinction favoring those ancestry was known to be mixed, particularly half French free persons of color in Louisiana. The segregation principle was extended to parks, cemeteries, theaters, restaurants in an effort to prevent any contact between blacks and whites as equals. It was codified on local and state levels on most of, famously with the separate but equal decision, the United States Supreme Court, Plessy versus Ferguson. But they didn't want any contact with Negroes. And that's the part I want to focus on real quick. It was no need for us to want to have a main focus to be a part of our oppressor's life. Of course, I'm going to get into the scriptures about that. There was no need for us wanting to have a healthy, or not to say healthy, they had a certain amount of disdain for us. What would be the reason for us wanting to band together with a beast, with a physical system, with a man with a system in place that says he don't want us to be around? You understand? Like we got to go through some deep psychological things to want to be a part of a system that hates you, be a part of a race, to be inside their back pocket, be inside their front yard, wanting to coincide and to get along. It should have been a lot more of us wanting to have establishments for ourselves. It should have been a lot more of us wanting to build for ourselves. So, but in order to understand the purpose of the civil rights, we got to go into like what was in a way that led to the civil rights being founded, which would be the Jim Crow laws. I'm already looking more at the Jim Crow articles. It says prior to the Civil War, the inferior status of slaves had made it necessary to pass laws segregating them. So segregating them from white people. Let me make it a little, select it 1 second so I can read all this. Okay. It says both races could work side by side as long as the slave recognized his subordinate place. That's crazy work. You can work with this oppressor as long as you recognize that you're subordinate. It says in the cities where most free African Americans live, rudimentary forms of segregation existed prior to the 1860s, but no uniform pattern emerged. In the North, free blacks also labored under harsh restrictions and often found even more rigid segregation than the South. Let that be a side note to you. Don't let them think or don't let them tell you that it was harder in the South than it was in the North. They was, if not more racist, if not more segregation, if not more oppression. They try to make it seem like the South was so horrible, which they were, but the North was equally horrible, if not worse. That was really the North versus the South, Confederate versus Union. That's really the pot calling the kettle black. That's exactly what it is. Or in this case, let's think of something good for Caucasian. I think of something. But yeah, that's literally what that was. It's them pointing the finger, blaming. All right. Let me go a little bit more on this article. I think that's about it. It says one might have expected the southern states to have created a segregation system immediately after war, but that did not happen. In some states, legislatures imposed rigid separation, but only in certain areas. Texas, for example, required that every train have one car in which all people of color had to sit. The South had no real system of public education prior to Civil War, and also the post-war or Reconstruction governments created by public schools. Those are often not segregated by race. Nonetheless, New Orleans had fully integrated schools until 1877, and in North Carolina, former slaves routinely sat on juries alongside whites. So this is just going over just some of the history about the system that's put in place with the Jim Crow. And like I said earlier, it's important to understand how the civil rights become what it was or what led to their creation. All right. So it says in 1877, the Supreme Court ruled out that you cannot have segregation on common carriers such as railroads, streetcars, riverboats. It says in the civil rights case of 1883, the court overturned key elements of the Civil Rights Act. All right, in 1875, thereby sanctioning the notion of separate but equal facilities of transportation for races, though it did not use the term separate but equal. 7 years later, the court approved a Mississippi statute requiring segregation on the interstate. So that's separate but equal. That's just another cute word they say to get you to put your guard down. To get you to put your guard down. That is all that is. Separate but equal. What the hell does that even mean? None of us would ever even imagine about something we've been told we were separate but equal. But that's part of the fight. So I wanted to go in on a certain movement that's a part of the civil rights era, but it's very hard to wrap your mind about or wrap your mind around about what they had to do for this particular movement. So just imagine you see a vicious dog. No, it's Slocky. Just imagine you're going to your favorite or your local restaurant and you want to sit down. And in order for you to sit down to get them to change their mind, they're going to throw food on you. They're going to throw beverages on you. They're going to spit on you. They're going to yell in your face, and you cannot attack. You cannot hit. You cannot move around. All right. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because there was a movement during the civil rights. It was called the sit-in movements. Now, of course, we're talking about Martin Luther King, but we're going to talk about his civil rights era, the civil rights, what's the prelude to it, what's some of the things they've done inside of the civil rights. And this is one of them. So I'm going to bring out this next article. The sit-in movements. You know what? Let me Let me see if I can get pull up another video for y'all. It's easy to it's I ain't gonna say it's easy, but sometimes a video can tell you a lot. We're still going to read the article as well. All right, let's select one. Bear with me 1 second. All right. All right, so let me zoom in real quick. Select, let me see how this look. Oh, let me take it out. 1 second. Let's go with you. All right, let's go with that. Sit in. Lock it. All right, so just imagine you are already dealing with an oppressive beast that's going to violate you with violence. And you're going to join a movement and say, hey, we're going to be your walking punching bag. Do as you please so we can eat with you. This is basically what the sit-in movement is. So I'm going to read a little bit on this article. And then, of course, I'm going to play a video so we can see what's actually been done. It says sit-in movements. Fuck it. All right, so it's like it. It says sit-in movements, a non-violent movement in the United States civil rights era that began in Greensboro, North Carolina, in 1960. The sit-in, an act of civil disobedience. That's what they're gonna call it. Civil disobedience was a tactic to arouse sympathy for the demonstrators among moderates and uninvolved individuals. Now, reading that, you'll sound like, oh, that's a nice tactic to get sympathy. This is how they got that sympathy. You go in there, sit down, and while some man yell in your face and spit in your face. You understand? While they throw food on you, while some of them slap you, they harm you. Who want to join a movement where you guys to be the punching bag? All right. So, like I say, it was a tactic that aroused sympathy for the demonstrators among moderates and uninvolved individuals. African Americans later joined by white activists. Usually students would go to segregated lunch counters, luncheonettes, and sit in all available spaces, request services, then refuse to leave when denied services because of their race. In addition to creating this disruption and draw unwanted publicity, the action caused economic hardship for the owners of the businesses because the sit-in participants took up spaces that normally were filled by paying customers. Here's the thing about that. They said they lost money. When black people sat down, you only lost money because you refused to serve them. That's why you lost your money, because you refused to serve. Had you been serving, you would have had customers. There would have been black customers, you would have white customers. All right. It says, although the first lunch counter sit-in began with just 4 participants, the attention paid to the protest created a movement that spread across the South in 1960 and 1961 to include 70,000 black and white participants that affected 20 states and resulted in the desegregation of many local businesses in those communities. All right, so this is just a little bit of how it started and who it started. I read a little bit on this. It said during the Indian struggle for independence from the British, followers of Karmucha Gandhi teachings employed to do sit-in to great advantage. A tactic similar to the sit-in that the sit-down strike had been used by unions to occupy plants of companies that they were on strike against. The sit-down was first used on a large scale in the United States during the United Automobile Workers strike against General Motors. So these sit-ins this is what they was doing. It says the lunch encounter to begin this movement, took place in North Carolina. For some freshmen of Agriculture and Technical College of North Carolina, a historically black college, made to purchase a local department store. They sat down at the whites-only lunch counter and placed an order, but with few servers. They remained seated, and they were eventually asked to leave the premises. Instead, they stayed until closing and returned the next day, more than a dozen other students. One of the students, David Richmond, acknowledged later that the action began on impulse, though the group who were familiar with Gandhi's nonviolent protests against the British had previously discussed taking action against Jim Crow laws, that the students were surprised at the impact of the local initiative and had the entire civil rights movement. So that's what they're saying. They were surprised about their efforts and what they was doing. They're doing a lot better than preachers, I'll tell you that much.
On October 19th, 1960, Dr. Martin Luther King and 51 others were arrested in Atlanta. They had refused to leave their seats at downtown department store lunch counters. 8 months earlier, 4 black college students started the sit-in movement at Woolworth's in Greensboro, North Carolina. After that, protests started happening in cities across the country. In March 1960, protests broke out at my own school, Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, then the nation's largest all-black university. The Southern University students' arrests and convictions were overturned in 1961 by the U.S. Supreme Court. The sit-in movement started to see some success, and it was helped with the efforts of a new organization, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. The protests were against the Jim Crow segregation laws and customs. Those laws dictated that blacks and whites use separate water fountains, bathrooms, ticket booths, and other public spaces.
All right, as you can hear, that's what they was doing. Like, they banned black people from even sitting down to even use the damn restroom, to buy a damn sandwich, to get a glass of water. Like, this is how diabolical this beast is, and yet people want us to join forces, hold hands, and sing kumbayas, and we all can overcome. How can you overcome when they are the ones that's still in charge? Salakia.
Also banned black people from being served at store lunch counters. The sit-in movement continued to gain momentum, and by August 1961, sit-ins had attracted over 70.
Salakia, I just wanted to show y'all that they was actually getting beat.
It also banned black people from being served at store lunch counters.
Right there. That's a sit-in nonviolent movement. That they sit in and let all the people get around them and just assault them. This is what they get. They got assaulted. All right. They got this from Gandhi. And I'm going to show you another person who loves some Gandhi, which is your Martin Luther King.
The sit-in movement continued to gain momentum, and by August 1961, sit-ins had attracted over 70,000 participants and generated over 3,000 arrests. Although Dr. King did not lead that sit-in in Atlanta, he was arrested along with the others. Charges against 16 of the 51 were dismissed, but Dr. King, the most high-profile of the group, was held on charges that his arrest violated a term of probation imposed on him earlier that year. Dr. King was sentenced to 6 months of hard labor, but presidential candidate John F. Kennedy helped secure Dr. King's release, and that earned pivotal black votes, which helped Kennedy win the presidential election in 1960.
All right. So All right, so yeah, so that's what it is. That's what they did. They set in these nonviolent movements, and they just got assaulted. People were just wailing on them. Man, if I'm gonna just play the video as I speak, and uh, let me make me larger. All right, I'm gonna play the video as I speak. But I'm just gonna mute the video so you can.
The sit-in move.
So you can just, as I speak, you can see it, and you know what I'm talking about. Like they was getting assaulted, they was getting hit and beat on. I'm talking about it got like to the point they getting choked and dragged up out their seats for the nonviolent sit-in. And our people is looking at another race of people, another nation of people, and using them as a term of motivation. They're using them as a term of, well, if they can do it, we can do it. But nobody turned to the Bible. No one turned to the God of Israel. You understand? They want to turn to what Gandhi did by sitting down. They want to turn to what some of the other white Americans did for the Ford, for Ford, where they sit down. But like I said, nobody wanted to turn to the law, statutes of our Lord. You understand? But they want to look at Gandhi. Look at that, just getting wailed on. And he pulled up out of that damn chair, still getting wailed on. I mean, goodness gracious, going to jail and all that for the nonviolent sit-in. You understand? That's what he was doing, nonviolent sit-ins. So, man, if I'm going to go ahead and pull up a scripture real quick. I'm going to go to the book of Deuteronomy 23:6. All right, then. Let's see. Let me make that larger for y'all. All right. Hold on. Let me zoom in just a taste. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 23, verse 6. Thou shalt not seek their peace. Like we shouldn't be so adamant about joining forces with them. We shouldn't be so adamant about wanting to be in part of their establishments. We shouldn't want to be wanting to do these nonviolent sit-ins with them where they can choke us and beat us and spit on us. Oh, I got more videos. It's just a little too grimy to show. That's what they did for the get nonviolent sit-in, for this Martin Luther King dream. All right, it says, thou shalt not seek their peace, nor their prosperity, all thy days forever. Like we shouldn't seek it. You understand? And now that they relax laws and you have to do business and they're not allowed to do stuff like that today, should you still seek their peace? No. Is it unlawful to do business with them? No. But in essence, like we should not be seeking their peace to want to be just like them. Like we have to come into the mindset of our own that we could be who we are. We got to come into the mindset that like we are the Lord's chosen. Or if all less, for those who can't recognize that you belong to a particular race. And we have been in last place in this country for far too long. We shouldn't have to do sit-ins. We shouldn't have to undo Jim Crow laws because that's what our oppressor is. No, we should want to separate, not physically as in go to like some other country like Africa or some nonsense like that, but we should want to separate who we give our love to. Like we should not be seeking their peace nor their prosperity all thy days forever. All right. So that's that on that. So now to the nightmare holder himself. So to understand Martin Luther King, which I'm going to pull up my next scripture. To you know what? I'm going to get it ready. Jeremiah. So I'm going. To understand Martin Luther King, you got to understand where some of his motivation comes from. And he has a lot of motivation from a foreigner. That foreigner is my Aunt Gandhi. All right. And we're going to pull that up real quick. Let me read this scripture this real quick for your sit-inners, your non-violent sit-ins. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 33, it says, Why trimmest thou thy ways to seek love? Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways? Like, why we want to change up our ways to seek their love? Like, when you seek our precious love, you get, and the way his system is, how long could you stay righteous in a wicked system? How long can you stay righteous in a system that's designed to plot and to be cunning and conniving and looting and stealing and so forth and so on? Is it why trimmest thy ways to seek love? Therefore thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways. All right, Salakia. So now let me get to the Mr. Martin Luther himself. Close Jim Crow down. Alrighty. So I'm about to read one of these a little excerpt on Gandhi. Let me share this tab so y'all can see what I'm reading. I'm gonna have to zoom in a lot. All right. So what you're reading is it's hard to read. It's an article, talking about what Gandhi did and what he said of one of his methods. Because Martin Luther King followed Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi's. All right. And which I'm gonna pull up the article next about how Martin Luther King said he wanted to be just like Gandhi and follow Gandhi, so forth and so on, right? But I'm gonna read this, and this is important because a lot of people love Martin Luther King, but no one really talks about who he was and how he became what he become and where his influence come from. This man role model was this man right here, and let's go ahead and read who his role model was. Hold on, let me double check the stream. All right, let me make it a little bit larger. Bear with me 1 second. Hold on, let's see if that's better. All right, that should be a little bit better. No, I'm going a little bit more. All right, so let me see. All right, it might be about as good as I'm gonna get it. I got a little bit more. Okay. All right, let's see now. All right, so yes, the life of Mahatma Gandhi is certainly a well documented as the life of modern times. There are nearly 1,000 biographies of him in English alone. Gandhi himself was extraordinarily prolific, judging from the 100 volumes of his collected writings. I'm going to skip down just a taste. Let me just read this part. Given the monumental nature of the record of his life and the scrutiny to which it was being subjected, to all these surprising ones are the most critical and from a certain standpoints among the most disturbing events and what otherwise seen as saintly life should have been received so little attention. Now remember, with the sit down, they looked at what Gandhi did with his sit down. All right. It says in the last few years before his assassination in January of 1948, but most certainly no earlier than the death of his wife in 1944, Gandhi took to practice. Here's what's important. I'm trying to make this right at the top. It says Gandhi took to the practice of taking naked young women to bed with him at night. Gandhi, who never wore many clothes to begin with, would himself to be naked on such occasions. 3 women, his grandnieces. Let's just pause right there. You know, I already said the man was a sexual libertine already. Yeah, he's a libertine. If you don't know what that is, I'll look it up and I'll show y'all. I'll get the definition for y'all. Well, I'm just gonna pull up the definition because you know this UPK, we define everything. All right. A libertine. Here's the definition. A person, especially a man who behaves without moral principles or a sense of responsibility, especially in sexual matters. A libertine. That's your boy Gandhi. All right. So it says 3 women, his grandnieces. Now, what does a man who's already halfway dressed need to be naked on such occasions have to do with 3 women, one of his grandnieces? You know, that's on Nye PDF. But let's continue. It says 3 women, his grandnieces, Abba and Manu, and his personal physicians of sorts, Sushila Nayar, were involved in this experiment. And brachiometry, how you say the word, which is with erroneous, it says, which with erroneous simplicity has been rendered as celibacy. Gandhi described brahmacharya as the search for Brahma. It says search for Brahma truth. And thus, in the most ordinarily accepted sense, to control in thought, word, and action, all the senses of the times are in place. It says brahmacharya, it says brahmacharya, the elimination of all desire. All right. So basically what it said he was doing, he slept in the bed with these women, including his grandniece. And him believing if he can able to sleep with around naked women, he can control himself. You just a libertine. That's all you is, Gandhi. You're just a libertine. Mahatma Gandhi is a libertine. So since we just read about that, let's go ahead and get into a little bit more about who Gandhi really was. Because this is where your Martin Luther King dream comes from. You understand? This is who he is. Because this is why we should be seeking their love. Let me pull up some more. Oh, Salaki. Wrong one. I think we're still good. Shalom, sis. I got you checking in. Shalom, sis. I got y'all. All right, so this is who Gandhi really was. It says Gandhi is deeply revered, but his attitudes on race and sex are under scrutiny. Because he was a libertine, want to sleep naked with his grandnieces. This him right here. He already damn near naked. So let's talk about people who love Martin Luther King, his role model. It says when Martin Luther King visited the villa in Mumbai, India, where Mohandas Gandhi stayed in the 1920s, he had a special request. He wanted to spend the nights in Gandhi's bedroom. Pause. First of all, what are you doing, Gandhi? Martin. Why you want to sleep in some deceased man's room for? Whatever. It was 1959, 11 years after Gandhi's death. The house called Mani Bhavan, where the Indian leader taught followers to spin their own fabric and where they launched this other stuff, blase, blase. It says his movement for the truth and nonviolent resistance had been converted into a museum in an austere top floor room where Gandhi's mattress and shoes still lay. King said he could feel the vibrations of Mahatma, or a great soul. He wanted to go sleep in that man's bed. Per King, it says King was booked in a very good hotel, but he said, I am not going anywhere else. I'm going to stay here because I'm getting vibrations of Gandhi, recalls the creator Yusha Takar. So the curators hauled in 2 cots, and the American civil rights leader and his wife, Coretta Scott King, spent the night next to Gandhi's vacant mattress. Afterwards, Martin Luther King told All Indian Radio that he decided to adopt Gandhi's method of civil disobedience as his own. So this is just how it looked. He could, that's Gandhi's bed or whatever. That's how that is. He wanted to sleep right next to it with a cot on. He can feel the vibration. This is your leader, Martin. All right. It says, now 6 decades later, many Black Africans are calling Gandhi a racist. Me Too activists are requesting his sexual practices. Hindu nationalists are rejecting Gandhi's vision of pluralistic India that is strengthened by diversity. Gandhi still revealed he helped India free from British, blase, blase. Let's read about him being a racist real quick. It says, last year, Gandhi's statue was removed from the university campus. Actors in Malawi there. Oh, here you go. It says in 1903, when Gandhi was in South Africa, he wrote that white people there should be the predominating race. He also said that Black people are troublesome, very dirty, and live like animals. Now, of course, all Black people ain't the same. There were all some Africans. But he might have been talking to some Israelites down as well. We scattered amongst the earth. But with white people and Native Americans, not Native Americans, them East Indians, when people talk about Black people or Africans, they kind of lump all of us the same. They say we are troublesome, very dirty, and we live like animals. But he also says white people are predominating race. This is what we get from our or your Martin Luther King Salaki. So, man, so we're going to go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 2, verse 14. It says, is Israel a servant, a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? Like, why are we still living like this? Why are we still viewed and portrayed as this slave? You understand? Like, because we don't hearken to the Most High. We want to seek love of our oppressors. We want to be like Gandhi with your civil disobedience, your nonviolence, your sit-ins, your sit-downs. Like, we don't want to be living according to the law, statutes, and commandments. We want to go over there and get beat on, and we want to go over there and to be like Gandhi. Your man Martin Luther King said he wanted to sleep next to a dead man's, an unalive man, a deceased man's empty bed because he felt vibrations. That's your leader right there. All right. Let me play you something about Mr. Martin himself. All right.
To discredit Martin Luther King Jr. are unsuccessful. The FBI prepares to send Dr. King an anonymous package containing a document that will come to be known as the Poison Pen Letter.
FBI intelligence chief Bill Sullivan himself takes some plain, unmarked paper and, pretending to be an American Negro, types out an anonymous threatening letter addressed simply King.
The letter began by calling Dr. King a fraud and warned that the demise.
Well, this is about a letter of them trying to get him to stop his movement. This is important that I'm bringing out is because I'm going to show you about some other documents that Trump signed, I believe, last year. Or maybe a previous term, I can't remember. But he signed some documents to release, maybe it was like in 2020 or 2021 now that I think about it. Trump signed some documents to release some of the files or declassify some of those files to be released to the public about what Martin Luther King was actually doing, and like all of the audio clips as well.
Of his reputation among the public was fast approaching. The package also contained an audio tape, a compilation of FBI surveillance allegedly of King engaging in multiple extramarital affairs. The document's ominous closing, according to some scholars, suggested that Dr. King was given a deadline of 34 days to take his own life or suffer the humiliation of the tape's release.
The interpretation of this by the people that investigated the FBI later, and by just about everybody who has gone through these records, believes that they intended for him to commit suicide.
The FBI sent the package anonymously to Dr. King on November 21st, 1964. But it went unopened for over a month because King was in Oslo, Norway, accepting the Nobel Prize.
The first person to eventually open
All right, so I'm not going to let the whole video play, but I just want to get that out there real quick. So I'm going to go up to the next video I got ready. All right.
The Trump administration released over 230,000 pages of previously classified documents regarding the 1968 assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The release comes months after President Trump signed an executive order demanding transparency into the assassinations of King, President John F. Kennedy, and Senator Robert F. Kennedy.
A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades.
The records include details on the FBI's investigation. The office noted the files on King's murder had never been digitized.
Trump administration released more than 6,000 documents.
So this is basically like another short reel. But what I wanted to bring out was that in these, people are going to find out who he really was. Some of the things he was really talking about. His sexual deviancy will be exposed about what he really was doing behind closed doors with his woman or other women. All right. Let me go to let's do 23 and 5. Is that what I want? Hold on, Salakia. Salakia real quick. 2025. Is that what I want? Hold on 1 second. That's not the scripture I want. Let me finish playing this one.
Documents related to the 1968 assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Yesterday, despite opposition from his family, the digital data dump includes more than 240,000 pages that had been under a court-imposed seal since 1977. In a statement, King's 2 living children urged the files be viewed within their full historical context.
All right, so a lot of people is in a frenzy about that. They don't want a lot of this information to come out. They don't want none of this information to come out. Doggone it. So okay, let me Oh, shucks, I missed one. Here it is, Salaki. Let me play this one real
Snap
quick.
your W-2 and file your taxes 100% free.
Answer to our problem in riots. So my slogan is not burn, baby, burn. My slogan is build, baby, build. Organize, baby. See the answer to our problem in riots. So my slogan is not burn, baby, burn. My slogan is build, baby, build. Organize, baby, organize. Learn, baby, learn so that you can earn, baby, earn. That's my slogan.
She said, something ain't right. I said, oh man. She said, oh man, the building is on fire. I said, no, what? I got my 3 kids and we bounced out.
Salaki, that's not the right one. But let me pull up this scripture real quick because we all heard this famous quote by this filthy piece of garbage. All right. What was it? Okay. All right, Salaki, let me play this one instead. Bear with me 1 second, Israel.
That dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead. And some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go. I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. It didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodation. I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare.
That's exactly what happened. That dream, Martin Luther King dream, is an ICPK nightmare. You understand? Because this was him. This is your scripture for your Martin Luther King. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 23, verse 25. I have heard what the prophets said, that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. Now, don't that sound familiar? They always talk about the lies that they do, talking about what they done dreamed about. Well, that dream of his, he led us to that, to the slaughter. That dream of Martin Luther King led us to us in that burning building with the integration of his love affection for the Caucasian woman and not that sister he had on his arm. You understand? So this is what we're dealing with, a sexual deviancy. So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 15, verse 8. It says, this people draw nigh unto me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts was far from me. Like, you always talk a good game. You talk a good game about what you want to do for Black people and how you want us to come together and do all these magnificent things for us to rise up against. But your heart, based on the FBI files, what they've been alluding to, you was a sexual deviant. You just wanted orgies. They used to call him Orgy Mike because his name was Michael and they changed it to Martin. So you were just a sexual deviant. You just wanted, your lips around them. You wanted to be around them. All right. It says he got loose lips. You understand? Like you talk a good game, just like all pastors today talk about all the dreams they have, but your dream led us to that burning building. Now, even though notice how he said, "No, I ain't lost hope yet." No, you can't lead us into destruction and then want to be the ones to lead us out of destruction. No, we got to get rid of you. You are that problem. Salakia. So I can see this. So my bad, Salakia. I'll reread it. It says, Matthew 15:8, this people draw nigh unto me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. No Christian pastor really follows the Bible. No Christian pastor really keeps the truth. You understand? I had another scripture I wanted to pull up. In the meantime, let me play this diabolical speech again.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead.
Yeah, that's what he wants y'all to know. He wants y'all to know about he has not lost hope and all this other nonsense. Let me tell you, this is what we can hope for. Hope to get the knowledge of the Most High. This is the book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 6. It says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Martin Luther King, you followed yourself after a sexual libertine deviant, a libertine deviant. That's what you did. You followed yourself after him who wanted to be, he was already damn near naked, but wanted to sleep with his grandnieces. That is PDF, that is on nigh to that child pedophilia. Well, that is on nigh to that. And it's your grandniece. Why you want to sleep naked around your grandnieces for? But that's who Martin Luther King patted himself out of. He also said that Black people are dirty and troublesome, and we live like animals. You understand? He didn't have the knowledge of that. But it says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. You understand? So that's why we got to get rid of this nightmare. You understand? And we can't be wanting to know about what Martin Luther King did. So there's a senator, I don't think I have the article, but there's a senator named Steve Bradford. He's in California. He's a senator, Stephen Bradford. He released an article a few years ago. I'm trying to find the exact one. I couldn't find it. But it was a few years ago. I remember reading that he's trying to stop the government or the presidents to stop he don't want them to release the documents. He don't want them to release the audio that they have of Martin Luther King. He wants to protect his legacy because what's been said is they got all of his sexual escapades out and that would ruin him. And could you imagine how you would feel once you found out that he was a libertine? Just imagine all the people watching Martin Luther King and they found out that he's a libertine. They found out that he's a sexual deviant. He's doing orgies and loving that Caucasian flesh. You understand? That'll destroy some people. But us in the Israelite School of UPK under Commander Junior Honda, we've been warning our people. We've been telling our people this was a sleazeball. Look who he modeled himself after. He modeled himself after a libertine, a PDF libertine, a man that wants to sleep with his grandnieces. Yuck. With Bear, for him to say he can sustain celibacy. Can you just keep it in your pants? That's it? You're a filthy piece of garbage. But that's who you model yourself out of. So Martin Luther King, extreme nightmare. You understand? That's the church say, I don't know if y'all can read that. Yeah, this is our nightmare. You understand? So with that, I am Priest and Officer Daraki of the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge. We've been established and teaching truth since 1969 under Commanding General Yohana. That is my class, y'all. Shalom.